Hey guys, Zack here, and welcome back to another action figure review, and today we'll be taking a look at the Bandai Movie Monster Series Kiryu 2003 version 2.0. Now this version of Kiryu comes from the 2003 film Godzilla Tokyo S.O.S. A lot of love for Tokyo S.O.S. lately. Not that I'm complaining or anything, I just think that's neat. But anyway, as far as my thoughts on Tokyo S.O.S. goes, I've talked about this before. I prefer the first movie, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, but I do think Tokyo S.O.S. is still a solid movie. I think the inclusion of Mothra adds like a more spiritual narrative to the Kiryu saga, which I appreciate. I really like that it borrows elements from the original 1961 Mothra, as well as other like non-Godzilla Toho classics. If I had one thing to complain about, I will say that the movie, like, there's a post-credit scene in the movie, and it, like, builds up to a sequel that never happened, which is very frustrating for me, because I hate when movies do that. I hate when movies, they have, like, a post-credit scene that builds up to a sequel, because in some cases, like, a sequel just never happens, right? Like, look at, like, Ultraman Rising. You know, there is a post-credit scene in that movie that does hint at, like, a sequel, but a sequel never got made. I recently rewatched Gamera Rebirth, which, solid show in my opinion. Yeah, that show ends on a cliffhanger, but, like, again, like, that show is, I don't see a season 2 happening anytime soon. And same with this movie. It builds up to a sequel involving Godzilla cells, and there is no sequel to Godzilla Tokyo S.O.S., so it just ends on a cliffhanger, and it's just very frustrating. As a whole, I don't like when, like, post-credit scenes do that. If you're gonna make a post-credit scene, I think it should just be, like, nothing that's necessary for the viewing experience. Like, the first movie, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, that had a post-credit scene, but it was just, like, a little, like, note to end the movie on. It wasn't, like, building up to a sequel or anything like that. This movie does that, and again, a sequel never got made, so it's like, why? But I digress. Still a solid movie, but the post-credit scene thing, I will say, is a little annoying, but I digress. I've been rambling on for far too long. Let's just get into this. As per usual, we will take a quick look at the tag. Starting off at the front here, we have a nice picture of Kiryu from Godzilla Tokyo S.O.S. At the bottom, well, it says Mechagodzilla, but like, Kiryu, 2003, version 2.0. Multi-Purpose Fighting System Kiryu 2003, there you go. So that's the full name. I just call it Kiryu 2003, but yeah, there's the whole name, in case you were curious. Here we have the Godzilla 2025 logo right here. On the back, we have a nice silhouette of Kiryu's dorsal plates, Godzilla Tokyo S.O.S. there, Movie Monster Series, both in English and in Japanese, Bandai, Godzilla, legal information here, Bandai Namco, ages 3 and up. On the inside, we have a nice silhouette of Kiryu, a little bit of a bio, but it's in Japanese, so if you want to translate that, you can, and mostly just legal information. And yeah, that's it for the tag. Now going back to Kiryu itself, to start, we'll take a look at the paint, and the painting on this figure, I think, looks nice. So as you can see, pretty much the entirety of this figure is going to be casted in this metallic silver, which I think looks nice. The arm and shoulder weapons are actually going to be an ever so slightly darker shade of metallic gray than the rest of the body. It's a little hard to tell because of the shininess of this figure, but, like, it's easier to tell in person, and, like, the difference, like, it's very subtle, but I like that. I like the differentiation here. I think it's nice. These shins here are going to have red arrows, and all of the wires, like in the legs and in the neck here, are all going to be painted black. Nothing at the waist or the tail here, but what is painted, I think, looks really nice. The eyes here are going to be painted yellow, and these streaks going down the eyes here, or going down the face here, this is going to be painted red, which technically isn't accurate. In the Kiryu saga, these bits here, these are actually lights, and in Godzilla Tokyo S.O.S., these are actually not lit up for the most part. They only light up until, like, the very end of the movie. So technically this isn't accurate, which isn't a big deal. It doesn't bug me at all, but it's just something that I find interesting. Not with, like, this isn't a jab at the figure. Like, I just learned about this, like, not too long ago, so for me, it's still just kind of like, because, like, growing up, I always thought, that, like, these were red in the movie, but, like, they just weren't lit up, and it wasn't as red as in Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. But, yeah, but still, not the end of the world. It's, like, not only is it such a small, like, part of the figure, but this figure isn't also, like, super expensive. You know, some people might say, like, oh, well, Zack, how come you can forgive this, but not the S.H. Monster Arts and Gearus 1972? I didn't get scammed out of $260 for this figure, like with the S.H. Monster Arts and Gearus, so I'm more inclined to be more positive with this guy, but I digress. Still, though, the painting on this figure I think is pretty nice, so the painting here, I'd say gets a pass. Now, we'll take a look at the articulation, and the articulation on this figure, I mean, it's a Bandai vinyl, it's not a lot to write home about, but the head can move 360 degrees, though do be careful, because the chin, oddly enough, it rubs against this shoulder cannon, but not this one, which I think is a little interesting. Like, not by much here, but, like, you do kind of have to, like, flex it a little bit to get a full 360, which is fine. The arms can move forwards about that far, and backwards about that far. And lastly, the tail can move 360 degrees. And that's pretty much it for the articulation here. Again, nothing crazy, but it's a Bandai vinyl. What else do you expect? I'd say it gets a pass. Now, we'll take a look at the sculpt. And the sculpting on this figure, for the most part, I think looks really good. Just like with the Bandai Movie Monster Series Kiryu 2002 version 2.0, I think the tail here is just a little too long. If they made it just a little shorter, it would have been perfect, but as is, like, to me, it just looks a little off. Maybe it's accurate. From what I've seen, like, not really, but there are some, like, pictures I've seen where the tail does look really long. So, again, maybe it's accurate, maybe it's not, I'm not sure. But at least on this figure, I feel like it would have been nicer if they just shortened the tail just a little bit. But besides the tail, the proportions here still look really nice, you know. Everything looks great. Nothing here looks too big or too small, again, apart from the tail. And overall, I think this does a really good job capturing the likeness of Kiryu from Godzilla Tokyo S.O.S. So the sculpting on this figure, I'd say is great. So the sculpting here, I'd say gets a pass. Now, we'll take a look at the detailing. And the detailing on this figure, I think looks really nice. So let's take a closer look. So starting off at the head here, we can see all of the panels and all of the mechanical bits here, like in the neck here, and all the detailing in the mouth here, I think looks really nice. Everything here is really nicely defined. The shoulder weapons here, again, just a lot of really nice metallic looking like detailing here. All of like the wiring and everything throughout the body here, and all of, like the panels and everything look really nice here. Like on the chest here, this looks really nice, and so on. Again, going to the arms here. Again, all of, like, again, like just all like the shoulder weapons here, looking really nice. All the wires in the legs here, and all the panels and everything, just detailed very nicely. The dorsal plates are going to be detailed nicely as well. And going to the tail here, again, just more really nice looking plating, and just really nice like wiring throughout, which just looks really nice. I'm a fan of how this looks. And even the underside of the feet. They did not need to sculpt the underside of the feet, but they did. These are going to be detailed very nicely. Again, just a lot of really nice metallic detailing here. And yeah, the detail on this figure, I think, is very solid. So the detailing here, I'd say definitely gets a pass. Now, we'll do some size comparisons. To start, here we have the original Movie Monster Series Kiryu 2003. I think this figure has the better paint variety. There's more coloration to him, but I still prefer this newer figure. I think the painting that is here looks better than the painting that's on this figure here. The sculpting is better, and overall, this is just a much better figure in my opinion. Here we have the Movie Monster Series Kiryu 2002, version 2.0. And it's interesting that this figure is slightly taller than this figure, but that's not really important now, is it? I don't know who else to bring in, so here we have Dead Kamibus. It is unfortunately just really funny that this is the first figure of Kamibus in the movie Monster Series line, and it's him dead. That's a little funny, but I digress. Of course, here we have some hand sanitizer, and here we have Dr. Billy Grant. So at the end of the day, should you get this figure? I do think this is a really nice figure. I think the painting here is nice. I think the sculpt and detailing here is great. Not a lot of articulation, but, you know, it's a Bandai vinyl. What else do you expect? And overall, this is a really nice figure, and I do recommend that you pick this figure up. As far as price tags go, now, I got this figure from Hobbylink Japan, and before shipping, I paid about $24 to $26, which I think is fair. You know, again, this is just a really nice quality figure, and, you know, $24, $26, that's not bad. Then there's the matter of shipping, and that's going to be a little much. Again, with all these tariffs going on, I've talked about this before, so I won't go into too much detail. But before the tariffs, I used FedEx, and shipping was about $25 to $30. I still use FedEx, but now with all the tariffs involved, shipping was about $40 to $45, which, you know, that's definitely going to bump the price up for this figure a little bit. So ultimately, it's up to you whether you want to spend that kind of money for shipping. I wanted this figure, so I went for it. But again, like, ultimately, like, me, like, recommending this figure, like, I do recommend it, but at the end of the day, it all just boils down to what you want to do. But I digress. So yeah, import fees are going to be a little higher if you get this guy from Hobbylink Japan. I don't know how it is with other, like, proxy services like Hobbylink Japan, but as far as Hobbylink Japan goes, you know, import fees, like, it's going to be a little much, but I digress. Take that as you will. But overall, this is still a really nice figure, and I do recommend that you pick it up. That being said, that is it for today. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you in the next video. Peace, Zack out.